Howdy, folks. Recording another video here. I'm Stephen Mullen. I write a best ball specific blog for Big Dogs Fantasy. And it looks like we're picking in the number 3 spot today. And right now my drafts are pretty much called a quest for Tyreek Hill because I do not have enough, especially if he only gets a 4-game suspension. Or if he gets less than that, I'm in big trouble. So I gotta reload this stupid thing. Guessing we don't have Barkley drop to us, so I think we'll be taking a McCaffrey or Kamara. Gonna go with McCaffrey here. I have about the same amount of both these guys, and I very slightly prefer McCaffrey for fantasy. I'm a Saints fan, so I prefer Kamara in the real life. So, one lesson to have learned now that I'm fighting to get a few shares of Tyreek Hill before the suspension news comes down. Since it looks like it will be between 0 and 4 games, I'm just trying to get some of them even in the 4th round now. So my ownership level is way too low. So as far as ownership goes, there's a lesson to be learned here. And that is when you have a really, really talented player in the situation that Hill was in, and even if you think that things are bad, right? Like, once I heard that phone conversation, I thought, like, there's no way. This guy's at least going to get suspended for 8 games, if not the season. So I just pretty much faded him for a while. Then I did actually get a couple shares. But anyone that you're that down on, you should try to keep at least 5% of them if you're doing these 12-team leagues. Because that, like, puts you in a pretty decent spot to get up to 8, which is, if you have 8, you'll own a player on average as much as everyone else does. So every player on average will be owned 8.3% of the time in a 12-team league, right? So you take 100% divided by 12, you got 8.3. So that's how much, on average, every dude will be owned on every team. So if you're at around 8%, it really doesn't matter to you what happens with that player, right? Like, it doesn't benefit you and it doesn't screw you no matter what goes on. You're going to be right with the field. You're going to be right on average. So on a guy like that, even with how bad the Tyreek Hill situation looked, I should have been hanging out around 5%. And then, trying to push up to 8% when the news changed and it looked like the suspension would be shorter. Somebody got Travis Kelce at the 2-3. That seems like pretty awesome value. It almost always goes in the first round. I did post a draft recently where I got Travis Kelce at the 2-8. I don't know how that happened, but... So we start off with McCaffrey. Here I'm fine taking Mike Evans or Damian Williams, whichever one this guy doesn't take, we're taking. Unless he jumps and takes a tight end, then we're going to have a decision. Looks like he's timing out, so he's going to be picking Damian Williams. And we'll gladly snatch up Mike Evans here. So in 2 weeks, on July 22nd, I will have an article coming out about ownership percentages and understanding all that. And especially how much you want to own a guy based on their draft capital, right? So my ownership cap for a guy I would draft round 1, 2, or 3 is lower than a guy that I would draft rounds 4 through 9. And then, chance. I'm going to take Zach Ertz here. I like that. Start off with one running back, one wide receiver, and Zach Ertz with McCaffrey, Evans, and Ertz. I like that. So as I was saying, so for your ownership percentages, on a guy that I pick rounds 1, 2, or 3, the most I want to own of any of those guys is 16%, which is, my 2 shares to the Fields 1. So I will have twice as much of that person as the average team does. I don't really like to go higher than that with your high draft capital picks, rounds 1, 2, and 3. It's like then an injury really just kind of destroys you. At 2-1, you're still gaining like a really nice advantage if your player has a good year. So once you get into rounds 4 through 9, I'm comfortable with up to 25% ownership cap, which basically gives you 3-1. And then anyone after round 9, I don't like to have more than 32% of, which is 4-1, but like I'm not quite as hard on that stance. Like if I'm just going to get ridiculous value after ridiculous value on some people, then I'm just going to keep taking them. But right now, I currently only have more than 32% on 2 players, and they're both in that, round 12, 13 area, and then round 11, 12. So those 2 players are Mark Andrews and Justice Hill, both Ravens, coincidentally enough, but it doesn't have anything to do with me loving the Ravens, just has to do with me loving those players at their ADPs, especially Justice Hill is still pretty good, but Mark Andrews is definitely starting to climb up enough. But I was all over Mark Andrews in round 15 from when I started these right after the NFL draft. So my latest article out actually is the Best Ball Championship MVPs article, where I look at the MVPs from 2018 at each position. These are how well they performed in the Best Ball Championship. So Patrick Mahomes was on 37.88% of the teams that made it into the finals of the Best Ball Championship. So this is the final 60 teams that made it to that very last round. And then I'm kind of projecting who I think the MVPs will be for 2019. So last year, Mahomes was in round 8 through 10. I put the rounds that I found the guy in instead of ADP because there was some pretty big gaps, right? So the ADP is just the average. I was more interested in like where the person was actually taken on certain teams, so you could see how like them going a little bit later made a team way better. So a good example of that would be so Tyreek Hill went before us in round 4 here, which he usually does go before I pick in round 4. So I'm not going to get up where I want to be with him. So that's just an unfortunate situation for me because I screwed up at the beginning of the season, the drafting season, which for me starts right after the NFL draft, basically. Once I know where the players go, I just don't find it that fun before that. There's definitely like a ton of value to be had before that because you can just take guys like David Montgomery in rounds 14 and 15. People don't even know who they are. So next year, I'm probably going to jump into doing some of those drafts before that time. So who do we have interest in here? Probably just the top 2 guys on the board, really. If Drake goes, I might scoot down and take Mark Ingram just because I have like no Mark Ingram, but also I have like a zillion Justice Hill, so getting a few Mark Ingram wouldn't be the worst. I knew that was going to happen because he's timing out. Do we want a Mark Ingram? Yeah. I've got so much of these guys, like even Lockett, even Sony Michel, and I just don't have much Mark Ingram at all. I'm probably down at like 2% Mark Ingram right now because the only time I've ever got him is when I've made an effort to get him. So in this draft, I will not be looking to take Justice Hill. I'll be fading Justice Hill in this draft. I don't really like handcuffing a guy within the same draft, right? I'd rather have like Ingram on some teams and then Justice Hill on more teams, and then if Ingram gets hurt, all my Justice Hills go off, and that makes those teams way better. So here we've got Lockett, we've got all the Mike Williams and those type of dudes. This is another interesting one. I just have like very little Lockett compared to Mike Williams, so I'm going to take Lockett. I actually prefer Mike Williams. Wasn't sure it was going to let us take Lockett there. Thought it was timing out on us. So, yeah, looking at these best ball championship MVPs, Mahomes was like the clear one at quarterback. He was so much better than everybody else, but he at that in those drafts was going around 8 through 10, and ADP is going to affect like this percentage, right? Because as the ADP goes up, then their effect on your team goes down, and that would lower this percentage. So, and Deshaun Watson here is my pick for 2019. He has like an ADP. You can get him in round 7 a lot, and I really think that that's where you're going to have to target him in those best ball championships to get the max value and really push him into that MVP status. So, last year's running back MVP was Christian McCaffrey, but I did find a lot of teams where he went in round 3, like to 3-1, pick 3.2, pick 3.3. So that kind of tells you that drafting early in the season on these championships isn't like a disadvantage. You'd think it would be because of all the injuries, right? Like if you draft later, you get to know what all the injuries are. But if you draft earlier, you get better ADPs, especially if you have like, a guy that benefits from an injury or late news, like James Conner did last year. He was obviously littered on a bunch of these teams too, just wasn't as high on. Just Christian McCaffrey was on the best teams. What's going on over here? Nothing too surprising there. Chris Carson, I've noticed like people have not reacted to his injury news as much as they have other people. Although there goes Rashad Penny and Darrell Henderson at the 5-12 and the 6-1. I actually have these two guys on a lot of teams myself, so they go close together, but it's generally actually at the end of round 6 and beginning of round 7 I was getting them together a lot. So yeah, last year at wide receiver, there really was not an MVP. Like I put Juju up, but Juju was actually tied with Mike Williams and Amari Cooper for the most owned people that made it in there. And the guy who I think has the most similar situation this year to what Juju's was last year is Mike Williams. So I don't think Mike Williams can be a 100 catch guy like Juju was last year, but I think Mike Williams can be like a 70 catch guy with 10 or 12 touchdowns, probably more like 10, and also over 1,000 yards. And his ADP in round 5, sometimes occasionally round 6, but you don't see that too much anymore. I did get him quite a bit in round 6 when it was earlier in the season. His ADP, that push him up to an MVP type status. So it was Juju's second year, right? And this is Mike Williams' real second year. It's technically his third year, but his rookie season was basically a wash because he had a back injury his rookie year, and they knew that before they drafted him. So I thought that was very interesting that they knew about it and chose to take him anyway. Robbie Anderson or Christian Kirk? I'm going to take Robbie Anderson. So it's pretty interesting, right, that the Chargers took Mike Williams at number 7 in the draft despite knowing he was basically going to be out most of the season with a back injury. Because even then, the Chargers were a pretty good team and like thought of themselves as a contender. So if they drafted a guy they knew wouldn't help them that season and it was a wide receiver in the top 10, you have to imagine that they absolutely loved Mike Williams to consider taking him there, right? Like, loved Mike Williams. Just keeping in mind I have Zach Ertz, so I don't really need to be looking at a tight end here. So with that in mind, that they loved Mike Williams so much, one sec, I'm kind of eagerly awaiting Timmy's pick. So he's going to time out and take Christian Kirk. I'm going to have to choose between Lamar Miller, Latavius Murray, and Dante Pettis. Draft before this, I got Jarvis Landry at the 7-11, which seemed kind of crazy. So since Christian Kirk's still there, that's who we're taking. That's who I considered taking instead of Robbie Anderson the last round. So for him to still be there, that was a slam dunk pick for me. I will pass on the running backs and figure that stuff out later. I only have 2 running backs, and it's Mark Ingram and Christian McCaffrey, but I'm not too concerned about that yet. So some other similarities in Juju and Mike Williams' situation is, remember, there was a deep target that was leaving Pittsburgh in Martavis Bryant, who went to Oakland, opening up more down the field throws for Juju. And Juju kind of like catches passes everywhere, right? He can catch like long passes, short passes, everything. Every route is within Juju's reach. I think that is pretty similar for Mike Williams. Mike Williams had some down the field plays. He also like had a screen or a reverse run that he ran and for a touchdown. So I think he can pretty much do it from all over the field. And with the Chargers using a 7th overall pick in the first round on a guy they knew they had a back injury, when they knew they had a contending team, tells you how much they liked this guy. Now, I'm not saying go crazy and start taking Mike Williams in round 4, which some people do. Like, I don't have a single share of Mike Williams that I drafted in round 4. But I am saying mid-round 5, late round 5, you're looking at a guy that can be an MVP type. And, at the beginning of round 5, you have to start considering him because you won't see him late round 6. So if you want to own him, but I will not push him into the 4th round. That's not something I'm willing to do with him. And he's my most owned wide receiver. I have like 23 or 24% ownership on Mike Williams. And I'd be comfortable with him right up to 25%, but not more than that since he's a round 4 through 9 guy. So let's see if there's anything interesting going on in this draft. We've got 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and a tight end. Doesn't really look like anyone has done anything off the wall yet. All these teams look pretty balanced so far. Jordan Howard going before Miles Sanders, huh? So yeah, we got the Melvin Gordon news. Right now, unfortunately for me, I cannot take advantage of the value on him if he slips to round 2 because he was one of the people I had the most of. So I have 13 or 14% ownership on Melvin Gordon. So I won't be taking any shares in round 2, unfortunately. Which stinks to pass on value, but you really have to pay attention to where you at with certain ownership levels. And there's just certain situations you can't be overinvested in. And that's one situation I don't want to be overinvested in. If I get down to 8% ownership on Melvin Gordon because I'm always fading him now, then I'll start taking some of these value picks. But so in the converse to that, Darius Geis and Adrian Peterson both appear to be getting to be pretty good values now. And I have very low ownership on both because I was not really interested in either of them at where their ADPs were. So I think I have 5% Geis. We have to make a pick here. We can pick anything. There's nothing I want for running back right off the bat. I guess we'll just take Sterling Shepard. Actually, I'm going to take Kyler Murray as my number 1 QB because I got Christian Kirk. I also like taking Murray in a spot where I have Zach Ertz. So Murray is one of those quarterbacks where I really kind of want 3 quarterbacks if I'm drafting him just because I'm a little afraid of his little butt running all over the field and getting smacked. So Ertz is a really nice tight end to have for that. So I'll usually be pretty comfortable with Ertz and one other decent tight end being just going with 2 tight ends. So I'm glad we took a second look at that and ended up going with Valdez Scantling's still on the board, huh? We're really hurting at running back, but there's just nothing we can do about it this round. There's just no good choices at all. We only have 2 running backs, but Gonna have to wait around because there's just no value on the board. It's gonna be funny when I end up. So, another point that I was getting back to. So I almost never like handcuffing on the same team. There is one instance that I don't mind it is when I go basically 0 RB. So I have a couple teams where like I drafted Dalvin Cook in round 2, and then I didn't draft another running back until round 7 or 8. And at the very end of those drafts, I was taking Alexander Mattison because, like, if you only have one solid running back spot, then you kind of do want to handcuff that guy because you need at least that one team, that one spot to be like solid, and then you can make up whatever the heck else is going on with your other 4 running backs. So yeah, if you decide to go something 0 RB ish, I don't mind handcuffing your top running back. But generally, I do not handcuff in best ball. I prefer to, handcuff by having my percentages on other teams. That's like the way you get the most upside. And if I was doing a best ball championship team and not a normal best ball league, I would not handcuff because you need everybody to hit to win in that best ball championship. But in these leagues where you're paying top 4 spots, I definitely like handcuffing my top running back if I go with like a light 0 RB strategy. People still call it 0 RB, but it's usually like 1 RB. I don't think anyone really does 0 RB in these. See people try it every now and then, but I don't think it's very good. I think you need to have one really strong, solid running back. Because like even if you start to get all these amazing wide receivers, they can start blocking each other at a certain point, right? Like because you still only get 4 wide receiver scores at the most each week. So we don't need anything but running back right now. We have 5 wide receivers. Let's look at our team real quick. Pull it up on here so you can see it. Still no bye weeks on here, draft. Come on, boys. Let's get on that. So we've got just McCaffrey and Ingram. Then we've got Evans, Lockett, Robbie Anderson, Christian Kirk, and Valdez-Scantling. So we don't really want to be taking another wide receiver for a while. I mean, obviously, if incredible value is given to us, we'll have no choice but to take it. But we're going to try to avoid that if we can. Boy, QB looks pretty well picked over. So we could go with 2 running backs with our next 2 picks. We also could go with a quarterback with 1 or a tight end with 1. I think I like trying to get 2 running backs with these 2 picks, but let's see who's available. Peyton Barber going makes that far, far, far less likely to happen. This could be a situation where we're almost 0 RB'd enough to consider Justice Hill with Mark Ingram. I'm going to try to avoid it, but I wonder if Adrian Peterson has been drafted yet. Really just don't want any LaShawn McCoy. All right. Round 10 is generally where I've been taking Adrian Peterson since the new guys rule came up. So at 10-10, I don't mind getting a little slice of that. So, you know how I was saying that we might consider taking Justice Hill and if to go behind Ingram. There's another guy that goes right around Justice Hill that I would rather have. I think I'm going to take Mark Andrews and then just like be done with my tight end and not have to worry about that anymore. Could take Ito here. I think I'd rather just take Mark Andrews and then, it's not our pick. Well, No, I'll feel foolish if he gets taken. So we're going to take Mark Andrews. And the thing here is, even though I could take Ito, is I'm going to try to get Dion Lewis in the next round, who I feel is pretty similar to Ito. Kalen Ballage in round 11. Ugh. Kalen Ballage is a strange case for me. So I have, I don't know, still like high 20% of Kalen Ballage, but it's because I did all these drafts early on where he went in round 15 and 16, and I just took him every time in round 15 or 16. I was like, yes, give me all those shares. But now he's, now that he goes a few rounds earlier, I don't even consider him. So we can just get tight end out of here. We will not be drafting another tight end in this draft. Period. We only have 3 running backs, and we only have 1 quarterback. So kind of looking to go running back and quarterback with our next 2 picks. Round 11, Trubisky. Round 11, Anthony Miller. Those guys they've been climbing pretty steadily. Anthony Miller is a guy I have a ton of. So what else do we have for news? So Emmanuel Sanders is out there running some drills and stuff. And am I hopeful that Emmanuel Sanders will be ready for week 1? Not really. Coming back from Achilles when you're hurt in December is like near impossible. Diablo this month, that sucks. So we're not really expecting that from Emmanuel Sanders, but like I'm intrigued enough that I'm going to get myself up to 3%. He was one of those few guys that I was hanging out at 0% on, and I was just like, I'll wait and see because I don't think he's going to be ready at all. And like now that it's looking like there's some reasonable chance he could be ready for week 1, I want to get up to 3 to 5% of him because he's going so late. So like I'm getting those percent in super late rounds. Oof. Running back is looking ugly. Quarterback is also not good. Kind of have interest in Josh Allen. Might end up having to take Justice Hill. I might just like not have a choice if he's there when we pick. I think it would be kind of amusing if I was like, don't generally handcuff your running backs than I do right in the same video, but I mean, there's just no way Ito Smith makes it to us, and once Ito Smith's off the board, it's Justice Hill, and then like a mile for me. I think Justice Hill is like a miles ahead of Alex Madison and Devin Singletary. I like Breida quite a bit, but he'd be in the running if Ito and Justice Hill both go before we pick. Justin Jackson around 12. Do not make that pick. I do like Justin Jackson, especially with the prospect of some sort of a holdout by Melvin Gordon, but that's too soon. Not too keen on taking Breida around 12. How much do I want to like play the game of letting both Breida and Justice Hill go by, though? Both the teams behind us have 4 running backs, so either of them could reasonably decide to pick one. Oof, Breida went. So now this is just like 100%. Don't care what I've said about not liking to handcuff on the same team. We are drafting Justice Hill if he's not taken here, because I expected Breida to 100% make it to our pick and maybe even make it back to us. So I was thinking of maybe just passing a running back here, but we're not passing Justice Hill here now. We like need the Baltimore running back too much because all we have is Adrian Peterson and McCaffrey for things we are comfortable with. Might go for an upside QB. It's our next pick, if he's not taken. Definitely going to take 3 quarterbacks in this draft, so that's another thing we have to keep in mind. So I wouldn't mind my third quarterback being Nick Foles or Andy Dalton. I guess a lot of that's going to depend on what happens with this pick here. So this guy's time. Okay. So we're going to take Josh Allen here. We're going to have Kyler and Josh Allen. Then we're just going to go for somebody kind of boring with our third quarterback pick, like a Foles or a Dalton. Maybe a Stafford or Darnold, but we just want kind of a boring pick with our third quarterback pick. Now that we've got Kyler and Allen upsides going. So probably going to have to we already have 5 wide receivers, so unless somebody really awesome falls to us the next round, going to be looking to bypass wide receiver. Just taking a look if there's anything crazy going on. So we do have something crazy going on. We've got Mia's dad with 0 tight ends still. Interested to see what he ends up with as a group. Obviously, I have tight ends turned off, so let's see what's still out there for him to pick. Did I just say Trey Burton was still out there in round 13? Wow. Okay. Ovens, thank you for taking Trey Burton, because if Mia's would have gotten Trey Burton as their first tight end around 13, that would have been brutal for us. So that would have been a fantastic round 13 pick for him to get. I mean, Hawkinson, Jordan Reed, sure. But I think that Burton is a tier above those guys. Although Hawkinson could certainly get into that tier, but there's so much uncertainty with what's going to go on with him being a rookie tight end. So there's still quite a few tight ends I like, but I just feel like that would have been completely crazy for him to get Burton at round 13 as his tight end 1. So yeah, when he reached for this Justin Jackson pick, oh my god, could you imagine if he would have taken Burton there and then just taken Justin Jackson the next round? I can't imagine. Justin Jackson, I mean, I've been drafting him a bit more because of the Gordon news too, but I've been getting him around 15, not round 12. I'm not even sure that I've taken him at 15. I've taken him at 16 a few times for sure. So he, again, just didn't draft a tight end. Interesting. Maybe he's taking my 0 tight end to the extreme and he's going to actually just roster 0 tight ends. That's not what I mean when I say 0 tight ends, boys and girls. It just means wait till around 10 or 11 before you take one. But you still kind of need, some on your roster. So this team with no tight end also has some pretty questionable running back stuff going on. But Tariq Cohen, Royce Freeman is his top 2. Madison went. Malcolm Brown went. Those are guys on my radar. Ronald Jones. I mean, he could get something sort of going at running back, but he's clearly paid the price for getting super way too crazy greedy at wide receiver. I want to take advantage of this Tyreek Hill situation too, but you can't just start your draft with 4 wide receivers, I don't think, and have anything go well. I know there are some people that go pretty pure 0 RB, but this went 0 RB and 0 tight end. That's just too much. Who do we have any interest in? Tom Brady is certainly someone boring. We do want a boring quarterback as our third quarterback. Chase Edmonds is the guy I've got some interest in. So I read an article about Chase Edmonds that made sense to me, about how he's probably going to get a fair amount of touches during the season, regardless of what happens with David Johnson, probably enough to be fantasy useful and score some touchdowns. So if they're really trying to run 90 plays a game in Arizona, which I think is the theory, that's what the air raid does, right? The 4 wide receivers, no tight end lineup. You ain't not going to be able to have David Johnson out there for every single play of a 90 play game. It's just impossible. Running backs need breaks, and even if Chase Edmonds isn't playing that much, if he can just get in there and break like a big touchdown or two, that's a lot of points. Interesting choice here. If our Isabella's there, it'd be nice to grab him for our stack with Kyler. Then I'm probably not getting Chase Edmonds because I might have to take a quarterback with my next pick. Yeah, I'm going to take Isabella and just go for the max Kyler Murray stack. Isabella and Kirk. It's probably the second, it's the second best stack you can get to Kirk and Fitzgerald for Murray. Might even be a little bit better for best ball than Kirk Fitzgerald just because of the upside being so high. Kind of hope people take Hawkinson and Jordan Reed so that the dude who went 0 tight end doesn't end up with one of those two. If neither of these guys take a quarterback, we might gamble. So we really don't care if we end up with Dalton or Foles. All right, because of our running back situation and how much I like the upside on Chase Edmonds. Damn, it's not like a pick again. Getting too excited here. So we're taking Edmonds or a quarterback. One of those two things. Okay, we're going to take Edmonds. So obviously, if anything happens to David Johnson, then Edmonds becomes amazing. But if nothing happens to David Johnson, then Edmonds might still be like a usable piece that gets into your flex or like your RB2 here and there by just scoring some long touchdowns. Huh. Reading this little excerpt here, that's something I hadn't read yet, is that at OTAs, I guess, they've both been on the field some with David Johnson lining up as a slot receiver and Chase Edmonds as the running back position. That's kind of interesting. They're pushing for some extra playing time, these running backs. I kind of like that. Probably isn't good for Hakeem Butler, because I think if there's one wide receiver that's going to lose out in that situation, it's going to be Butler. Butler is going to be used in all goal line situations, I think. You're going to see Butler and Larry Fitz be the two wide receivers. I don't even know if Kingsbury will use a goal line lineup. Wow, Mia's dad took Darren Waller over Hawkinson. I do think Darren Waller might have a slightly higher upside, but I think Hawkinson's like 1,000 times more safe. Like, I'd actually not feel terrible at Hawkinson as my first tight end. Ugh, that pick was bad. Sorry, Mia's dad guy, if you're watching this video, which seems very unlikely, but if you are, sorry about that, brother. So we're just hoping to get a quarterback this next round. We don't really give a crap who. Any human quarterback that's not a Washington quarterback, a Miami quarterback, isn't Eli and isn't Joe Flacco. Is there any quarterback we cannot draft? We couldn't take Derek Carr, but I think he's already off the board because we already have a bye week 6 guy. Yep. There's Darnold off the board, so there's one contestant down. I think we have 3 or 4 contestants left. if they all go, it's not the end of the world. It'll be pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie, it'll be pretty bad. I don't want to have just Josh Allen and Kyler. So if Dalton, Foles, and Mariota all go, that'll be bad. Mia's dad's totally gonna wreck us for. Nope, he's taking Jason Witten. Okay, I don't understand what's happening. Jason Witten is supposed to play 20 plays a game. You don't want to draft Jason Witten at all this year. Does that mean there's no way Jason Witten can have a good game? Nope. It might even be week 1. He might have like his 6 catches for 55 yards week 1 and be like, ha, we gotcha. But no. That's not going to stay that way. Oh, God, man. I don't like that pick either. I am not into Matt Lacoste. Like, he's a blocking tight end. He ended up like 4th on the depth chart in Denver. I realized he went to the Patriots. He's not Gronk. It's not going to be Gronk. When Ben Watson comes back, he's not even going to be the number 1 tight end. Ben Watson will just take that over. So nice. We're going to get Dalton or Foles, which is fantastic. I really did not want to get stuck with Mariota. If we have the choice between the two, we're going to take Foles, even though I like Dalton's upside a bit more. But with my other 2 quarterbacks, I don't care about upside. I want the safest person, and I feel like Foles is safer. I also have lower ownership on Foles. So we're going to grab Foles here. Then we're going to grab a running back in round 17 and probably try to take a wide receiver in the last round. So with Chase Edmonds being our last running back drafted, we can kind of I don't really see him as a pure handcuff. We have already handcuffed, basically, by having both Ingram and Hill on our team. So I don't want another guy that's just like going to be straight crap. Like, I mean, I don't want like a Reichwell Armstead on this team that's going to be just straight poop if Leonard Fournette's healthy. But with Jalen Richard and Chris Thompson going off the board, we're going to be behind the 8 ball a little. So this is interesting. So we can take Armstead, who has the most upside, right? Or we can take Darwin Thompson, who's more likely to just have a role. Like, he's probably going to get 3rd down work. I'm going to tell you Reichwell Armstead after saying I wasn't going to take Reichwell Armstead. I just feel like at this point that upside is better than what we can get from Darwin Thompson. So if Chris Thompson or Jalen Richard had been there when we picked, we would have picked either of them over Armstead. But because they both went off the board, which I did not expect to happen, I think we had to take Armstead over Darwin Thompson. So we got 1 spot left. If we can grab a Bills or Jaguars wide receiver with our last pick that has a lot of upside, we could pair them with our other 2 quarterbacks. We could pair them with Josh Allen or Nick Foles. So guys I'll be looking at in the last round, if they're there, Marquise Lee, DJ Chark, or sometimes A. Jones. I've been picking him here and there in the last round. Sometimes he'll be there. I don't have any interest in Cole Beasley, so if Cole Beasley was still on the Cowboys, I would have interest in Cole Beasley, but since Cole Beasley is on the Bills, I do not. I do actually have a little interest in Randall Cobb. I've been picking him up in the last rounds here and there, last 2 rounds. All right, so we kind of went through most of this best ball championship MVPs. Obviously, the MVP at tight end was Kelsey. And I think the MVP this year is, like, obviously Kelsey, which might seem a little weird, but his situation feels like it's better now, and Ertz and Kittle feel like they're worse, right? So he was the MVP last year, and now he's probably going to get some amount of games without Tyreek Hill, maybe 2, maybe 4. So he'll be heavily targeted in those games. Well, Kittle and Ertz both like have all kinds of guys added to their team. So like we've got a second year of Goddard, which is going to get some extra looks at the red zone, which is an area that Ertz used to struggle at, but hasn't with Carson Wentz. So relax, people. I do admit, yes, he hasn't with Carson Wentz. But not only is Goddard going to get more red zone looks, they got J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who's already lining up on the goal line formations at OTAs. And then Kittle, now they've got Pettis and Debo, Jalen Hurd, Goodwin maybe hanging out. That other terrible guy people like that played the slot last year. So for wide receivers, we've got Mike Evans, Lockett, Robbie Anderson, Christian Kirk, Valdez-Scantling, Isabella. We have a ton of upside guys, but I also feel incredibly safe with our grouping. I guess just because we had 5 so early. So we can really shoot for whatever type of wide receiver we want in the last round. See, that was a little unfortunate. The pick where I took Armstead, I was definitely thinking I was going to take either Jalen Richard or Chris Thompson. That's why I had said, we're probably not going to take Armstead here. But then it got to the point where it was like Darwin Thompson, who to me, his role isn't set in stone. If his role was set in stone, then I would have taken him. But Ricky Seals-Jones, not into him. Ryan Fitzpatrick, I'm not taking any of the quarterbacks for Washington or Miami until we know who the starters are. Getting zeros at the quarterback position is just horrible. Well, we're taking one of the top 2 people on this board, because if Callaway drops to me, I'm not passing him in round 18. That's madness. And if Callaway gets taken, we're going to take Zay Jones to go with our Josh Allen. And we will forego the Marquise Lee or DJ Chark. Gross. Such a good pick for Mike Atso there. Yeah, Callaway should not be there in round 18. That's crazy. Zay Jones probably shouldn't either, but it's not as egregious as Callaway being there. All right. We'll take one more look at the team, and then we'll wrap this video up. In this one, we have decided to go 3 quarterbacks. We're going with the running quarterbacks Kyler Murray and Josh Allen, and backing them up with a steady Nick Foles. At running back, we've got McCaffrey, Mark Ingram, Adrian Peterson, Justice Hill, Chase Edmonds, and Ryquell Armstead. So our quarterbacks, that's pretty much an A- type group for me. I love this quarterback group. Our running backs, however, it's probably something like a C+, which is disappointing when you start with McCaffrey, but that's the way the ball bounces. I would give this a C+, especially since we're capped on our upside because we felt like Justice Hill was literally 10 times better than anyone else on the board when we picked him. So we did decide to end up going with this handcuff, which I don't love. Adrian Peterson, God knows when and how, what games will start, what will go on with him. So I really wanted to just have this solid number 2 to go with McCaffrey. And then, we've got super high upside guys and Edmonds and Armstead, but Edmonds, I feel fairly strongly that he's going to have enough of a role to not just be a useless thing on your bench, whereas Armstead is just going to be a useless thing on your bench unless something happens to Fournette, which something probably will, but you can't know that for certain. So our running backs, I would give a C+, which, like I said, after starting with McCaffrey is pretty disappointing. Our wide receivers are for sure an A. Mike Evans, Lockett, Robbie Anderson, Christian Kirk, Valdez-Scantling, Isabella in combination with Kyler Murray, and then Zay Jones in combination with Josh Allen. like if Zay Jones were to lead the team in targets again, I realize he probably won't, but he did lead the team in targets last year. If he were to take a step forward, become like the number one for Allen, it'd be just great to have Allen number one in the last round. So I would definitely give us an A minus, a C plus, an A, and then tight ends like also an A for me. So basically an A minus, an A, and a C plus. That's a pretty friggin' strong team. I mean, anytime like your lowest grade is at running back, though, you just kind of look at your team and you're like, But looking at the team as a whole, I think this is a great team. In the description for this article, I'm going to have a link to this Best Ball Championships article I showed you guys a couple times, so you can go check that out if you want to see it longer or whatever. Print it out, download it. And there will also be a link to my Twitter if you want to ask any questions, post any rosters on there, anything like that. Feel free to hit me up or add me on Twitter. And there will also be a link to my Instagram, which is just pictures of rosters I drafted during this summer. So all it is, the whole Instagram is just pictures of best ball roster after best ball roster. All right, everybody. Good luck in your drafts and have a good one.